what are some of these? I know we prepared a top 5 here, so maybe we could rattle those off here. But let's start with, what are these mistakes you're seeing these out-of-state investors that might go against your advice, or they're going rogue on you, and you're seeing them cost them money, or they're regretting not listening?
Yeah, I mean, again, what we've had to learn is how to trust other people, because when you're in California and you want to find cash flow, you have to go somewhere else. And that requires having a great property manager. It requires having a great contractor, a great, person to find your tenant, the tenant screening process. And I have learned over the years that there's a long checklist of things that need to be examined before trusting anyone. So one of the people that we trusted was doing what looked and appeared to be really nice upgrades, because we don't want to have to fly over there and manage a complete renovation on a property. We just want that done. Some people do it, and they'll fly out to different markets and work with an agent and buy a property and have it renovated by someone. And that, to me, ends up costing more because you're paying for the flight and the staying in hotels. I just want it done by an expert. And these renovations were beautiful with this company that we were working with. But then a few years into it, and by the way, the cash flow was fantastic. Everything was great. But then a few years later, one of our members called and said, it turns out that some of the work wasn't permitted, and the city's requiring us to redo it. And or pay all these fees and fines. And that was one thing we had not put on our checklist before then, was make sure all the work that was done was permitted. So this is just a message I want to get out to people is, I have certainly done unpermitted work on properties I've lived in. And I'm now learning, you know what, just get it permitted. Because if you rent out a part of a property that's not permitted, you're kind of liable if anything goes wrong. I don't know if you know the story about the big fire in Oakland that ended up, a lot of people died in that fire, and the landlord was charged with murder because none of it was permitted. So had it been permitted and insured, and it wouldn't be the landlord's fault. But if something bad happens and you didn't have it permitted, that's a huge liability. So if you've had anyone do work, get it checked and make sure that it was done properly and that the city knows about it. And especially if you've got a tenant living in there, that it was done properly and to code.
In that scenario there, so everyone's aware, the buyer is responsible then for all those permits. They're responsible to get that work done. And yes, you can say my attorney can go after that seller, but the amount of energy and maybe that seller's gone or he's not in business anymore. So you as the buyer are going to be responsible for that cost of doing whatever the city's going to require you to do now. So
and they don't mess around in Chicago. They're very serious. I brought a group of about 50 investors to Chicago on a bus tour, and we were working with a different group that was doing the acquisitions and renovations of the properties. And on the bus tour, there was a very serious looking woman in the back making notes. And at the end of the tour, she came up to me and she said, I just came on this tour because I'm from the city of Chicago, and I wanted to make sure you weren't selling unpermitted properties, because she knew that it had happened, but that I didn't know anything about it. So she wanted to go on the bus tour to make sure I really, truly didn't know anything about it, and I didn't. We ended up being friends and everything was fine, but she stuck on the bus. So yeah, they take it very seriously, and for good reason. There's a reason for building codes, there's a reason for it. And if you're going to put a tenant in there, they need to be safe.
Yep. Especially with porches here in Chicago.
In buyers, we've talked about this before, but that's why you have your attorney. Out-of-state buyers might not realize that you need an attorney on your side to represent you. It's worth a couple $100, and then ask for the permits. Just ask. If you're buying turnkey from someone, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask those type of questions. Just do everything you can to protect yourself. Absolutely.
And it was just something I had never thought about asking for before. So now it's on our checklist.
Nice. All right. What's next here?
Let's see.
Number 4.
Oh gosh. Okay. This applies to every city, but I'll tell you what, it really, really applies to your city, is making sure you understand the neighborhood. And as an out-of-state investor, there's no way we could understand the neighborhood very well. I mean, we could try and we could look up crime stats. I mean, citydata.com gives really, really good data on neighborhoods, but it's still really difficult if you're not from the area to understand. And real estate is street by street, especially when you get into cities, urban areas. I mean, there's a part of San Francisco that is Union Square is the highest end part of San Francisco. It is the snobbiest part of San Francisco, but literally 1 block away is the scariest, highest crime neighborhood. And like, you have to tell tourists, don't go that way, go that way. So, you know, you have to know the area. And usually that takes, you know, someone local or someone in the neighborhood. I mean, a lot of times if I don't have an expert, if I'm doing it on my own, which normally I rarely ever do that, I'll go knocking on doors or talk to neighbors, go to the park, go to the local Starbucks and just say, what do you think of this neighborhood? You know, and get feedback from people who live there. So that's one way to do it. But also just having somebody local you can trust who's grown up there and really understands it street by street. That's one of the reasons when we started investing, we had a real estate agent take us around, and, you know, she was just trying to just sell us stuff. I had California written on my forehead, like California dummy. And she's like taking me to these really expensive neighborhoods. And I realized, okay, she's just in it for the commission. Who's going to give me information that is real? And I thought, well, a property manager will, because they know where the rental demand is. They know where the crime is. They're dealing with it. They are managing the asset, not just selling it. Property managers, sure, they can buy and sell real estate as well, but they have to hold on to it. Whereas a real estate agent just gets the commission and they're off. And so I just started relying more on the property manager, especially those that have a proven track record, that have been around for a long time, and really understand the dynamics of each street, each neighborhood, because it can be, especially in parts of the South Side. And if you're kind of getting closer to the city, there'll be streets that have a huge upside. Or you could get properties for so cheap, but one street might be a lot better or worse than another. So you just have to you got to have a real expert there. And again, if you rely on your property manager will tell you whether they even want to manage that property, right? I mean, are there some areas you won't manage?
Yeah, no, there's areas we won't manage. And you know, someone bought a property on an online forum here and signed up with his management. I took a drive by, and the house next door was falling apart. The garage got set on fire in the back, and he was going to buy this place. I said, man, I am not going to manage this place for you. And because I got to deal with that then. My team has to deal with it. And I have to deal with my team complaining to me about why we brought this guy on forever. But ultimately, having the property manager have their buy-in during the process up front of then they're in it with you. Then you guys kind of in a way agreed that this is a good property, and the property manager can meet its basic standards to continue to manage it. So I think that's huge. There's not a day that goes by someone doesn't shoot me an address, either text or email, says, hey, what do you think of this block? And it's my job as a property manager to kind of set our entire company up for, hey, do we want to manage on here or not? Or can we be successful managing on here for you? Because again, for you, for me, if people aren't making money, then no one's winning at all. So
yeah, and I think it's really important for property managers to be selective, because we had an example in Kansas City where when during the downturn, I had a huge following in Australia. They had just the opportunity of a lifetime, because their dollar had all of a sudden become double as strong as ours. And yet our real estate was like on sale, so they could come and get stuff for almost nothing. And they really literally wanted it for almost nothing. Like they wanted $10,000 properties that rented for $1,000 a month and stuff like that. So they would find this stuff and like in Kansas City and say, look, you know, I can get this $10,000 property and it rents for $1,000. I'm like, no, it doesn't. But they wanted it. And so they talked this property manager into letting him do it. And the property manager was like, no, I don't manage in that area and that's not going to work. But he reluctantly agreed to please them. And he ended up going out of business because he didn't stick with what he knew and kind of gave in. So I think it really is important for property managers to know, for anyone to know, here's my business, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I stick with, and I can't work with you because it's not our business, because then all of your time and energy will go to that problem property instead of the ones, you know, that you are better at managing.
So every time we take on a I say bad owner, maybe an owner that isn't a right fit for us, to us might be a bad owner, but they're just someone else that has a different view on things, I guess. But
yeah.
anytime we take someone that isn't the right fit, we hurt the rest of our clients then.
Yes.
The rest of our portfolio, because it comes to 80-20 rule. Then they start taking 20% of the people start taking 80% of your time in that sense. So
It's not good.
it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. So we definitely, we have a whole list on our website, a checklist of what to look for in a good property management company. That's free to download. And because to me, that is the key, that your property manager is your partner for life, or it's the person selling your property, like I said, is in and out. If it's the same person, then that's different. But
yeah. There's vested interest in it at that point. Yep. So, all right. So we got number 5 was not understanding the importance of getting permits. Number 4, not understanding the neighborhoods of crime. Number 3, the right property manager. And number 2, understanding property taxes. Tell us about where you see people go wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, I know every city is different, but in Chicago, and probably every little suburb is different too. And that's the thing, is people don't understand what's happening in one part of the city might be different in the other, or in a different neighborhood, different suburb. Property taxes are different. And just again, using Dallas as an example, there are certain suburbs that are 2%, and there's some that are 4%, and that will affect your pro forma for sure. Another thing is that the property taxes get reassessed. So sometimes when you buy that property, you are paying the property taxes on sort of the non-renovated property. Once it's renovated and it's reassessed, your taxes could go up. So I know Chicago's kind of got different. There's some of that, but good property manager. Well, I don't know. Are you guys able to negotiate the property taxes?
Yeah, so we offer, so kind of in my, whenever I'm talking to somebody out of state, even people local too, just getting into it, I always tell them, listen, you got your taxes here. You got to make sure, one, you're buying them right, or those are the right tax you're buying. You're not buying stuff with a senior freeze, but you have to make sure we have in place, whether it be you're letting us do it for you, or if you're doing it yourself, you have to be contesting these property taxes every year. You only get relief maybe 2 out of 5 years, but it'll definitely make up for the years you don't on the couple that you do. So here in Cook County or Illinois, however you want to word it, it's crucial to be contesting those every single year here.
And is that something you offer? That's a service you offer?
Yeah. No, that's something we use an attorney that does it, but I think for a small fee, we handle all the paperwork and the facilitation of it. So
it's just business as usual there, right?
That's kind of, you try not to word it that way, but when you're here, you're used to it. You got to pay the attorney to get them knocked down, so you could pay the attorney again a couple of years later. So
we don't have that in California. Again, it's so different. That's why it's confusing to Californians, is we have, and it could change. Believe me, it could change, but you're locked in, and your property taxes only go up incrementally every year, even if the property value went up substantially. So people they don't know to expect that or prepare for that when they buy, and it should be in the pro forma, but it doesn't, because a lot of these neighborhoods don't go up in value so dramatically in Chicago. It's really not that big of a problem as it would be in California.
Yeah. For people out of state, if they want to know more about the taxes, look at cookcountypropertyinfo.com, and we'll link to it in the show notes. But that will give you'll find out if there's exemptions there. You'll find out if there's a senior freeze, so you can back into what the number is really going to be, and you'll see what you're getting assessed at. And then you'll know that number and say, okay, like given everywhere else in the neighborhood, I have a good job of appealing. You should appeal every single time, as Mark said, but you can kind of get some of your data in order to be like, okay, it really makes sense of those numbers. Because you'll see a lot of times on a pro forma, the taxes from 2018 on there. And it's drastically different now, right? Like you're setting yourself up for failure by undershooting the taxes from the get-go, and then they're going up on you from there. Yeah, so exactly. That I would definitely go on that site every single time and figure out what you should be paying in taxes, all right, what the true rate is, and not what the broker's selling you.
We also have to link to that landlord horror story about permitting too in Oakland. We'll link to that. I'm curious to read that article.
Yeah, it was a terrible and tragic thing, but you just don't get greedy. Don't get greedy and start making all these rooms in a house that are not permitted. And
All right, cool. Not understanding property taxes. And you have your number one here, which isn't a surprise to me, because on our website, this is the number one thing that is searched on our website, or number one reason people find our website is because of this topic. Tell us, Section 8, what are people not understanding about Section 8 here coming from out of state?
So many things. There's just a lot of preconceived notions about it, and positive and negative. Some people are just terrified of Section 8, and so they don't want to know anything about it. And others just think, oh, I'm just going to get, the government's going to pay for everything. I'm never going to have to worry about rent ever again. So it's just, either way you look at it, you just got to understand it. And it can be a great wealth builder. But let me just put it this way. An investor came to us who had never bought investment property ever. And she chose a Section 8 property in Chicago as her first. And she didn't, I mean, there's so much to learn on your first investment. That's kind of that's a lot to learn all at once. But she had this preconceived notion that for the rest of her life, she would just be receiving government income. Well, her tenant ended up getting a job. And then I think she got a boyfriend, and boyfriend moved in, and all of a sudden everything changed. And the tenant lost a lot of the Section 8 money and could no longer pay. And so this new investor had to, evict this person within a month. I mean, it was just a very difficult thing. So again, like everything, you just got to really understand what you're investing in. And Section 8 doesn't mean that every single month it's mailbox money. I think that's just people trying to sell it, telling you that. Although it is great. I mean, it literally is the government paying your rent for you. But it's based on that person's status. I would think that most people who get that status would never want to lose it. But you just need to know what would happen if they do and be prepared for it. Could you own this property at market rate? Would it still work if that tenant lost their Section 8 and you tried to re-rent it and it went to a market rate tenant? So just kind of having a backup plan and understanding that tenants are still tenants, whether they're on Section 8 vouchers or not. I mean, I'm sure you've got all kinds of information on the pros and cons that you could do a whole show on it.
Yep. No, so the one thing that South Suburbs specific about Section 8 that you have to watch for is in many of the South Suburb neighborhoods like Country Club Hills, South Holland, and those two specifically, you get more, Hazel Crest too, you get more from Section 8 than you do market. So I've watched people underwrite it at that higher Section 8 number, and then the next time you're on the market and you can't get it rented right away, or you can't find a new Section 8 tenant to come in. So it's important to make sure you're underwriting at whatever the lower of the two is, and in some of those suburbs, it is the market tenant. So, and then one other thing, sorry, I cut you off. This is a fact that blows me away is the Section 8 voucher. This is probably a United States thing. This is not even a Chicago thing, but it's inheritable. So it can pass down. Wow. So all the more reason why not to lose it. Like if I have it and I pass away, my daughter or my son can get it then.